Hey guys, Brickman117, welcome back to the channel and the teardown video of the ultimate AA gun. I did warn you it was coming, and that time has come. The actual AA gun itself is modular, so that will just be disassembled and stored on my shelves. As for the diorama, I really want the pieces, so let's take it apart. I also said in my recent studio tour video that I would show you my Site B, my workshop as it were, where I keep all of my parts and where I do most of my building. So this seemed like a good opportunity to show you how I organise my parts and how I store them to make building more enjoyable. So we'll take a look at that later on in the video once the diorama is all stripped down and ready to go. So when it comes to taking the diorama apart, it sounds like a simple task, although when you think about the fact that there's thousands and thousands of different pieces just in the diorama alone, I'm sure you can appreciate that's a heck of a lot of sorting, which takes a very long time, even though this video suggests otherwise. So I apply the same logic to taking it apart as I do to putting it together. I do it in stages. So as you can see, I'm starting by removing all of the foliage, the stones, the leaves and everything to get all of that out my way. Once I've got all that out of my way, it looks like this, which really goes to highlight how important foliage pieces and rocks and trees and pebbles are to any diorama, because when you look at it like this, it looks like pants. It's not great at all. So they really are the life of the diorama. So when I take them off, I don't sort them as I go. I just chuck them all into this box, which leaves me a huge sorting job. So once they're all in the box, I then go through sorting all of the different pieces, putting them back in their bags so I know exactly what I've got for future use. From there, I move on to the landscaping, and as you can see, I've already started tearing up loads of the terrain plates and sorting them out into their colours. As you can see, I've got a huge box of brown terrain plates here, and just anything brown, basically anything that I use for the terrain goes in there. I've also got some of the sandbags and things in there just to sort out at the same time. Once I'd got through all of the brown, I then started separating out all of the green, the dark green and the silver and the dark grey as well. As you can see, there's big sections of all of those colours, as well as the water pieces. They all had to be sorted out as well. So there's a number of different size and shaped water pieces, so I wanted all of those sorted out so I could put those back in their bags for future use as well. And then finally, after an insane amount of hours sorting and organising, you're left with this. As you can see, the AA gun is being stripped down. As I said, it was modular, which makes it very easy to be stored. So I've taken the legs off of the body and the gun off of the top of the body. And that just makes it nice and convenient for it to be stored on this lower shelf in the studio, where it can stay until I want to potentially use it for a future diorama. I don't need the parts right now, so it makes no sense to strip it down. I've got all the banished vehicles from the diorama here, and I've got the UNSC vehicles up on this shelf, as well as two yet to be sorted huge piles of banished figures, as well as UNSC figures. I'll have to get round to that at a later date. In regards to the parts, as you can see, I've separated out all of the plates and bricks into their colours and sizes, so they'll be ready to go back into their building trays at Site B. And as for the foliage, I've separated all that out, so I know exactly what I've got for future builds. It's really nice being able to just say, I want this piece or that piece, and you know how many you've got, so you know how many you can use. I've also separated out all the rock pieces, the pebble pieces, the tree pieces, and I've also bagged up all of the water pieces as well. So that's pretty much everything sorted there. I've got the battlescape plates as well, which will go back into a box behind the new in box collection. And then I have all of the terrain pieces as well, which again will be moved over to Site B. And then as if by magic, behold, Site B. Now, for those that are new to the channel, if you don't know why I've got my stuff in two different places, it's because the studio is at my place of work and I don't want to be at work for any longer than I have to be. So it's a good space to use for displaying stuff and so on, but it's not a room I need to use all of the time. So I moved all of the parts and so on to my loft at home, so I can spend more time at home. And if I get half an hour here, half an hour there, I can just pop up into the loft and build. As you can see, I've got all my studio lights, my white backdrop, my turntable, so I do most of my filming, building and reviewing on this table here. When it comes to storage, you can see I have a vast array of drawer and organizer units. If we start over this side, you can see I've put all of the foliage and water pieces in this big tub where they'll stay, so I know where they are. As we go into the bigger drawers below, I've got one drawer filled with UNSC figures, and then I've got another drawer filled with Covenant figures, and then a final drawer with Flood and Forerunner figures. And then as we move over onto the more shallow drawers, this is where I keep most of my bigger parts, all of the bricks, plates, slopes, wheels, random pieces. I tend to organise them by both colour and shape. If there's a lot of one piece, they're all stuck together and they tend to just be that type in that drawer, whereas if there's lots of different types of that piece, then they share the drawer. Like all of the slopes go in the same drawer, I just stick them all together. As you can see, I've got various different colours, in fact all of the colours. If it's a very small amount of a certain colour, they all tend to go in one drawer with other colours that you don't get many pieces in. As we come down the line of drawers, we start to get into colours that I have more blocks of. So they tend to take up either a whole stack of drawers or a half stack of drawers, like the Covenant purple, starting with the older original purple, then moving on to the newer, more metallic purple, and the same with the UNSC green, the original old mottled green, and then a whole tower of the newer forest green, which is now the older green because it's been replaced by the Halo Infinite metallic green. I've also got base plates in there, as you would have seen, and then I move on to silver, which takes up an entire tower. At the moment it's mixed primarily with the older Mega Block silver, but the new shinier Infinite silver is starting to take over, so I'll be creating a completely separate tower for the newer shinier metallic Halo Infinite silver. Up top I've got these smaller organiser boxes which I use to store weapons in. In this box, as you can see, I've got UNSC weapons, and all of these weapons are pretty much from the Mega Blocks and early Mega Construx era. The newer weapons tend to be with the vehicles on display, so these are generally older weapons. And in the second box I've got all of the Covenant weapons. I don't have a specific box for banished weapons yet, but I do need to create one, so I'm sure I'll do that in the very near future. As for the red and black boxes, or the organisers, this is where I keep all of the smaller parts. So again, I separate them into colours, so I've got all of the normal colours. As you can see, this is a black example where I keep all the black parts. Just the smaller fiddly parts, they're not individually separated to a single part. It's more of a case of similar parts because there are so many different parts. I just would need so many organisers, so I do group them in similar shaped pieces. And as you can see, I've got loads of these boxes, all for the different colours. And I've also got boxes for things like the sandbags, the energy coils, rock pieces, and various other pieces, which just makes it easier for finding these kind of pieces, as opposed to just general building blocks. And as we move over to the other side of the desk, you can see I've got these large containers where I keep complete sets. Over the years, I've purchased a number of eBay hauls, which is basically just carnage, and they always come with incomplete sets. So as I collect more and more hauls, I'm able to complete more and more sets with the random parts I get. As I complete a set, I put it in a bag, I put it in one of these boxes, and they're all kind of sorted to their factions. And then up above we've got the very small parts. All of these organisers are purely for one thing. They've all got 1x1 studs or plates, and then they go to 1x2, 1x3, 1x4, 1x5, 1x6, etc., and then they go to 2x. The reason I do this is because whenever you're building anything, it's so handy to just have these pieces in the same boxes in the same place, so you know whichever colour you're building in, you can just grab whichever box is relevant, put it on the desk, and you've got all of your small pieces that you're guaranteed to want to use in almost any build. And having them this well organised saves huge amount of time when you're actually building. And speaking of building, here's a sneak peek of what it looks like when I'm creating something that you guys will eventually end up watching on the channel. As you can see, I've got various organisers and drawer sections out on the table. When it gets too cluttered, I have a quick tidy up and put them back, and then I get more out again and make more mess. So back in the studio, and as you can see, I have a completely blank canvas screaming out to be built on. And what am I going to build? Well, that's yet to be decided, but stay tuned, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.